As the door to the boss dungeon creaked open, the sound echoed ominously throughout the room. Namgung remarked that he couldn't see the boss, suspecting it might be hiding. However, Yu Damduk pointed out that the boss was right before them, the absolute ruler of this dungeon. Namgung's excitement grew as he felt the intense pressure emanating from the Minotaur. Seeing that the boss wasn't making the first move, he mentioned that this moment was perfect for strategizing. Just then, Yu Damduk received a system prompt alerting him that a sacrifice was required. This revelation stunned him, and he struggled to grasp its meaning. As he observed Namgung organizing his guild into groups, Yu Damduk realized he was the only one who could see the prompt. Realizing there might still be a chance for a safe walkthrough of the dungeon, he called out to the guildmaster, who initially brushed him off, focused on forming a strategy. But when Yu Damduk mentioned he might have a solution, he finally caught the guildmaster's attention. The second fool in the group was seriously displeased, suspecting that Yu Damduk was trying to steal credit from their guildmaster, Namgung. Unable to tolerate it any longer, he stepped aside and approached the boss. Noticing that the boss wasn't reacting, he pulled out a crossbow. In his mind, strategies were for losers when you could just take down the enemy in one shot. He aimed at the boss's head, activating his F-rank talent, as if an F-rank skill would help him clutch against a boss. Still, he kept trying to get closer, his mind fixated on the idea of just needing a little more proximity. Yu Damduk noticed that the second fool had crossed over the boss's barrier and yelled for him to stop. This only infuriated the second fool, who shouted back at Yu Damduk, accusing him of trying to steal his credit. Fueled by his anger, he then brazenly challenged the boss, shouting, "Come and defeat me!" The system alerted Yu Damduk that the fool had trespassed into the boss room, triggering a random scapegoat selection. Shocked by the unexpected turn, Yu Damduk felt the overwhelming pressure that descended on the room, causing the guild members to panic and cry out for help. The second fool, an F-rank, was overwhelmed by the pressure, unable to move or breathe, and was on the brink of death. As the designated scapegoat, the second fool had been chosen for sacrifice. Namgung, annoyed, asked the fool if he knew what he had done, but looking ahead with terror, Yu Damduk told them it was useless to argue now. The Minotaur boss, enraged, instantly entered a berserk state, letting out a loud growl that dealt mental damage to everyone. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the second fool tried to crawl backward, but felt resistance from the barrier. He banged on it, yelling to be released from the dungeon. The boss instantly charged at him, prompting Namgung to leap into action. He saved the fool just as the boss crashed into the barrier with a loud thud. Facing the opponent, Namgung ordered his team to widen their formation and not to panic. Drawing his dual-bladed axe, he rushed toward the boss, instructing his team to proceed with the strategy. As he closed in, he saw the Minotaur boss about to strike. Namgung swiftly dodged the attack, which seemed slow to him. He launched forward, slashing down with his Supreme Dragon's Claw dual bone technique. As the Minotaur boss was still dazed from its heavy attack, the guild members, seeing the blow land, praised their guild leader for his top-notch strategy. Even Yu Damduk was impressed, realizing how Namgung operated on a completely different level. However, something was wrong. The attack only grazed the Minotaur boss, as if it had struck steel armor rather than leather skin. "Watch out, Namgung!" shouted Yu Damduk. Seeing the incoming attack, Namgung quickly performed a backflip, ensuring he gained distance to rethink his next move. Holding his bleeding arm as blood oozed down profusely, he knew any mistake or miscalculation could lead to instant death. He ordered his guild members to deploy an enclosing formation. The guild members responded swiftly, gathering information on the boss's weaknesses without interfering directly. Yu Damduk was impressed by Namgung's precise and clear command, showing how much of a veteran he was in the dungeon. It seemed to be the best strategy they had right now. Yu Damduk realized that the boss wouldn't attack the scattered guild members as long as they kept their distance. However, as the boss raised its weapon, accompanied by thunderous sounds and lightning, Yu Damduk's skull tingled with a familiar sensation. This was the technique that had once teleported him back to Earth. Namgung told his guild members to brace themselves as the boss was about to use a disrupt attack. Seeing this as his chance to close the distance, he instantly rushed toward the Minotaur boss. "Don't attack! It's a trap!" yelled Yu Damduk, but Namgung didn't heed his warning. Realizing he had been baited, Namgung knew he had no choice but to take the attack head-on. Fortunately, Yu Damduk rushed in with a devastating flying kick, instantly interrupting the Minotaur boss's attack. Using almost all his strength on that kick, Yu Damduk locked eyes with the enraged Minotaur as it reactivated its thunder attack. Yu Damduk realized it was too late to dodge. A massive thunderous explosion erupted, launching everyone away. The guild members couldn't believe their guildmaster had fallen. As they debated whether to back him up, the second fool, in a panic, pleaded with his teammates for help. In pain, Yu Damduk cursed the Minotaur, lamenting how, despite his shitty life, he had finally acquired a talent, only for it all to be wasted in this moment. Touching a weapon before him, Yu Damduk smiled, realizing he hadn't tried something yet. Excitement visible, Yu Damduk asked the Minotaur if Thor had castrated it, causing its high temper. "I didn't endure all this hustle to lose it all here," Yu Damduk muttered, his voice filled with resolve. With a gentle swing that seemed to echo the gravity of the cosmos, his action didn't escape the Minotaur's gaze. "Brace yourself, you Johnny Sins of a cow," he sneered. "I'm going to finish what Thor couldn't, and I'm going to cancel your eternal subscription to masculinity. Yeah, I'm chopping your schlong off." With those words, he activated his sword talent, a double S-rank ability. Hearing this, the Minotaur's rage intensified. It wasn't going to let that insult slide. Seeing Yu Damduk with a sword, Namgung knew the boss could never be cut down by a rookie like him. He tried to shout, to tell Yu Damduk to run away, but the words wouldn't come out. He cursed himself for not heeding Yu Damduk's earlier warning. Then, with a swift and unmatched cut, Yu Damduk left everyone dumbfounded. The sheer speed and precision of the strike left even the Minotaur boss in disbelief. It felt something was missing. A part of its body had been severed, and it couldn't quite comprehend what had just happened. At first, it was a gamble, but the instant I got hold of a sword, it felt like my senses and perception sharpened. And now, I can cut down this fucking beef because I'm starving. Yu Damduk felt his body acting on its own. With a smile on his face, he realized that choosing the sword talent was the best choice. Minotaur's boss was very enraged, charging head-on, ready to kill Yu Damduk. When he turned to see the incoming castrated cow, with a great slash downwards, he was surprised to realize that Yu Damduk had disappeared. Suddenly, the Minotaur felt deep cuts all over its arms, with blood oozing from multiple wounds. It stood there, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Namgung was dumbstruck, unable to believe what he had witnessed. It was as if a deity had awakened within Yu Damduk, enabling him to execute 6 consecutive attacks in a split second. Even so, the strikes, though impressive, were too shallow to be truly effective. Yu Damduk realized that the Minotaur boss was indeed a formidable creature, worthy of being forged by Thor himself. The second fool shouted, mocking Yu Damduk's efforts, claiming that his skill was useless. Annoyed, Namgung silenced him, turning his attention to Yu Damduk. "Those were incredible attacks," he said, praising him. For the first time, he acknowledged Yu Damduk's abilities, recognizing that our protagonist indeed had the skills to stand among them the top rankers. But there was one problem. Yu Damduk's sword wouldn't last long. Seeing this, he gritted his teeth, frustrated by how weak the weapon was. After just one powerful attack, it wasn't able to withstand his strength. Knowing this, Yu Damduk planned to aim for the Minotaur's vitals in one decisive move. With great force, he moved toward the Minotaur, breaking the sound barrier as he closed in. Predicting Yu Damduk's next move, the Minotaur launched its attack, but Yu Damduk swiftly dodged, grazing past its strike. He retaliated with a devastating slash to the Minotaur's chest, but to his dismay, it barely made an impact. Determined, Yu Damduk aimed for the Minotaur's eye, throwing his sword with precision. The Minotaur dodged, only to be met with a powerful kick to its chin, shattering its jaw and sending it airborne, the force so immense that it left the Minotaur suspended in a pose reminiscent of Gojo's iconic stance. Catching the falling blade in his hand, Yu Damduk knew this was his chance. With the Minotaur momentarily defenseless, he prepared to strike. Sensing the danger, the Minotaur unleashed an AoE skill, catching Yu Damduk by surprise. He was launched back, struggling to hold his ground as he braced against the shockwave with his sword. With each second that he used his skill, the sword began to shatter. Yu Damduk realized that time was running out. He had only moments left before his weapon would be completely destroyed. Realizing the sword was at its limits, hoping that his next attack would land no matter what, Yu Damduk looked at the slightly weakened Minotaur boss and realized that there was an opening. Namgung recognized that this was the AoE skill the boss had used earlier, which caused serious damage. Unleashing his godly technique aura, the presence of the sword god, Yu Damduk, changed to that of a harbinger of death, the undefeated sword. The influx and pressure of aura from Yu Damduk and the boss made Namgung feel frightened, as no human being could withstand such terrifying pressure generated solely by their will to kill. Pondering how to help Yu Damduk, he recalled that Yu Damduk had told him how he could fight without seeing. Turning to look at the second fool, he thought that if he could help Yu Damduk, it was his chance to shine. Meanwhile, Yu Damduk was channeling all his killing intent, which was as vigorous as a rampaging tide of the sea, yet calm and soothing at the same time. Having imbued his weapon with his unworldly energy, he knew this time he was just going to focus on the vital point at once. Everything seemed to have slowed down, except for the two opponents having a standoff and preparing to engage against each other, with the Minotaur unleashing Thor's rampaging thunder to rush forward. Yu Damduk, the same, charged towards the Minotaur's boss. Both entities, with devastating speed, were about to clash and end the battle with a single move, each using their strongest attack. With great might and strength, Yu Damduk made an upper slash that sliced the Minotaur boss, with tofu blood splattering out as his blade snapped before his eyes. He could not believe his sword had reached its limit, yet the boss was only injured, giving up, and waiting for his death, with all hope lost from his body. The Minotaur boss brought down its axe with serious thunder energy, about to kill Yu Damduk. His hands, wide open, felt as if he had a sword in his arms once again, which was the second fool who had thrown the sword that perfectly landed on Yu Damduk's arm. With newfound strength and energy, Yu Damduk told the cow, "Time to get castrated." No, Thor did that. Time to make it lose its manhood. "Get rid of the boss!" the rookie shouted. Yu Damduk vanished, and with a loud explosion, the battle had concluded. Outside the dungeon, the crowd had gathered around the gate, which was late in the day. The crowd was about to leave, losing hope that the guild may not clear the dungeon that day, when they realized that people seemed to be emerging from the dungeon. Everyone, not believing that they were truly outside the dungeon, Yu Damduk asked the guildmaster how he knew he could catch the sword behind his back, replying to Yu Damduk that he had told them he could fight without seeing, so he had no choice but to take a gamble. Laughing nervously, Yu Damduk thanked him for almost making him a meat skewer, thanking Namgung for saving all of them, which he declined, thanking Yu Damduk for saving all of them countless times, in which all the guild members joined in, thanking Yu Damduk for saving them from death despite their rudeness. Namgung nudged Yu Damduk, saying that the people were waiting to interview him, the #1 contributor. Not believing what he had heard, Yu Damduk asked Namgung if he was truly the #1 contributor. Recalling how his entire life he had been looked down upon because of his lack of talent, things seemed to have changed. Holding back his tears, Yu Damduk raised his hands higher, signaling to the citizens that they had succeeded in raiding the dungeon.